Changes? If not, I will make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Go ahead.
Sorry, John.
So
Go ahead.
First and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
And moving on to minutes from last meeting. Everyone had a chance to look over those?
Yes.
Someone like to make a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Awesome, we have a first and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Moving on to new business. Looks like we have a preliminary plat. Miss Ray, we have Mabry Meadows on Saluda Highway Estates LLC is requesting a revision to a previously approved preliminary plat. The subject property is zoned rural residential 1 and is identified as tax map number 518-0000-017 and 123 and 124, 125, and 142, Council District 5.
Though Marion Ray, Associate Planner for Zoning. Mabry Meadows is a previously approved subdivision. You approved it been a couple of years, I believe now. But they are coming back. It's RUD 1, which does not require open space or buffers. So this subdivision had open space between the lots and the railroad tracks to the west. They're coming back. They want to reabsorb that area into the individual lots to allow the property owners to control the area behind their homes. They are also removing 017 from the scope of the preliminary plat. The previous plat had it called as future development, which meant it was under the control of Planning Commission for future divisions. They'd like to remove that area from the scope of the plat, give more flexibility. Ginnell Lane still stubs out to this property, so future developers could connect to that lane if they would like. Here is the vicinity map. It's on Saluda Road, south part of the county here near Chester County. Zoning there is RUD 1, but it's surrounded by RUD and AGC. It's a rural area. And this is the preliminary plat that they are revising to. You can see the blue area is where the lots have expanded all the way back to the rear property line that goes along the railroad tracks there. And then I outlined the area in red that is being removed from the scope of the preliminary plat. So it's still 35 lots. The acreage did decrease to just under 60 acres, and it did not make a big difference on their density. Their density is still well within requirements. So the findings are basically the same. The site will be serviced by private well and septic systems, and all lots meet or greatly exceed the 1 acre minimum lot size. For the use and density, single families and allowed use, the maximum density for RUD 1 is 1 unit per acre. This one has a density of 0.59 units. And then TIA was not required for this particular project. And it's accessed from Saluda Road, which is SCDOT maintained. Still has again a lane, it's been completed. Sidewalks are not required. 20% open space is not required and is being removed with this plat. And then buffers are also not required due to the RUD1 standards. So previously, a tree survey was completed and approved by staff. They still have it outlined in green on the plat. I'll get back to it in just a moment. And staff recommends approval for this. Go back to the picture. You have any questions for staff?
I do, Marion.
Yes, sir.
So that little area in red, right, well, kind of encompassed in red,
Mm-hmm.
that's on the
Yes.
35, okay. Is that gonna be, have it where that could be a future connection into whatever development this is?
That little part is staying with the subdivision as part of their stormwater. There's also a little pond in between 17 and 18 that is also part of the stormwater that's staying within as open space. They still will have some open space that requires an HOA to maintain it. They just didn't want the individual property owners to have to maintain a communal.
I guess what I'm asking is that, could that cul-de-sac be extended into this area to provide connectivity?
Yes, yes, because right now it's just stormwater control. There's a,
Okay,
is topography basically. But if they come back in and want to future develop this property further, they will be required to connect.
okay. And you said the green area depicted is the tree save area?
Mhm.
Okay.
That was what is the easement for the tree save area for the entire subdivision. And it was, most of it was open space, but there was some area that was open space that wasn't tree save.
Any additional questions?
Is this gonna be a lighted intersection or probably not?
It's not.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Mary.
If there are no additional questions, is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. Moving on to our second order of new business, which is the Planning Commission is to review and provide a recommendation to amend Chapter 155 of the zoning code, specifically Table 155.935.8, the wall sign standards, to allow more than one wall sign on a building, to increase the maximum wall sign area, and to add a new maximum allowed area for buildings greater than 100,000 square feet.
Oh, good evening. Rick Abood, your zoning administrator, and I'm here to talk about your wall sign standards. This is something we've proactively identified that we have applicants and we may have issues with some of the current sign code. And there's a couple challenges. Our sign code only allows one sign per wall face. And we find out relatively large retailers may have difficulty living within that one sign allowance, because you have a big retailer may have two entrances at either far side of the building, it's quite a ways apart, and you'd like to be able to advertise kind of the goods and services that are available on either side of the building. Reasonable. And the other thing we want to talk about is the maximum sign allowance of the 200 square feet. Again, on a very large building, 200 square feet may not be adequate, depending on the placement of the building and maybe in a multi-tenant situation. We brought this to the Planning and Zoning Committee on September 10th, and they forwarded the recommendation on this, and I'll review it for you. Our current allowance, you see the maximum number per wall is 1. And also our maximum sign area per wall is 200 square feet. A summary of our proposed changes: we're going to be able to remove the maximum number of signs allowed per wall, and then allow an option of the signs to be 5% of the total wall area or use an existing allowance for 1 square foot of sign per 1 linear foot. We would also like to consider increasing the maximum sign area from 200 square feet to 400 square foot. And then the Planning and Zoning Committee recommended that we talk about this. They didn't have the specifics. We didn't about how large you might want to increase the sign for a building over 100,000 square feet. This just gives you an example of a multi-tenant long wall. There's lots of signs here. We do have some provisions for individual signs for tenant, but if you read the code strictly, you know, you're probably running into over your 200 square foot running down that length. This is the current sign of the FedEx facility. It's approximately 400 square foot long building, and you can see where our maximum sign footages get you with that little guy right there in the corner. If we went up to 400, you get something that looks like this. Still not too crazy, but a good proportion of the building. Again, another example of something maybe a little closer to the street where a sign, nearly 400 square foot long building would get a 200 square foot sign right now. You bumped it up to 400, that's what you get. And also, we looked at 5%. That can be capped. That's what we're still considering caps, but 5% of that building is 670 square foot. Just give you an idea of proportion. Here is where the 5% comes in handy, because that linear number for that building is pretty small. And they have that current sign there. I'm not sure if that even quite meets our current code standards, but if you went to 5%, we actually had a submittal. They wanted something that was 5%. That's pretty close, and that's what you'd end up with, 5% of a tall structure. So if we went over the change, this is what we'd amend the table to be with no max, add the 5%, add 400 and talk about, or add the 600 for buildings over 100,000 square feet. I did want to talk about the 600. I can go over that in a moment. In making the recommendations, you need to find it, you know, the proposed text amendment relationship to the comprehensive plan and future land use. You know, it's not a land use. It does provide greater flexibility for commercial businesses. And then we have the relationships of the text amendments to other relevant plans. If you want to go into our strategic plan, we talk about managing codes, evolving elements adapted to the growth and change. That doesn't conflict with any plans. We also want to look at whether it's in best practices in community planning and design. Honestly, sign codes are all over the board, but this is consistent with provisions found in other communities. You'll have a table of what other communities did in the staff report, which is quite varied, but this is somewhere in the middle of all that. And then about the safety, welfare, necessity, and this allows the public to be better informed of the breadth of services that may be found in commercial structures, and enhance general welfare. And the multiple sign things can help out people that have limited mobility issues and get to the part of the building that they need to be. So we would recommend approval of the amendment with an asterisk. We want to be able to allow the reasonable signs up to 400 square foot and allow them to be divided up to give us different messages along the wall. The question is about the 100,000 square foot structures. We think that 400, personally I think at 400 feet is probably enough for them. And maybe there's situations where you'd want to consider more. 600 feet gets pretty big. They use an example, I don't think we need another shutterfly sign. I don't know if that'd even fit, even with 600, but you know, sometimes it gets to be a little much. So we recommend maybe dropping down to 400, or somewhere in between 6 and 4 if you think that warranted.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a couple of questions. So for the 400 square feet recommendation, you're saying that For example, you could have one main sign at 200 and then a second at 100 and another at 100. Or you could break that down even further. You could have a main sign at 200 and then 50, 50, 50. 50.
Exactly.
Okay. So then, and you kind of just answered this question, but for those larger buildings with the 600, do you have any particular parameters that you feel like might be exceptions if we were to go that route? Like, what do you think is the trigger for allowing such a large sign?
I think 400 is adequate myself. And generally, you're talking about warehouse buildings.
Sure.
You know, how big does a FedEx need to be, or a shipping company or something like that, or you know, data centers probably wouldn't have a big sign on them, but you know, those structures, we may get some commercial structures over that, but they're probably gonna have monument signs and things that would be adequate to advertise the building.
Did you ever consider, like with 100,000 square feet, the wall length, the total wall length?
Yeah.
And kind of what you were alluding to, where if it was a pretty long wall and you had one 300 square foot and one 300 at both ends, you know, that would be a good distance. So that's,
Yeah.
I'm kind of asking the same question with Kate, that Kate asked.
There could be. I brought my sign expert with me. I don't know if he has he has more examples since he does the permitting for this and looks at it much closer than I do, and I don't know if
We have a
he
sign
might
expert.
have a better
Wow.
answer for
Sign
that
expert.
question.
There he is right there.
Okay.
Would you agree with Rick's kind of trigger point?
We looked in a lot of the existing shopping centers, even some of the warehouses around that 400, so it's based on linear feet. 400, there are some that are 600, there are some larger ones. They're more, more of an exception than the rule. 400 kind of captured the most. But there are obviously some larger ones. We haven't had, we kind of based it, the 400 on what we saw as like existing slash what's asked of us more than, you know, we do have some exceptions that go to that 600 over the years for variances, but those are more, like the sheriff, like few and far between than our standard warehouses and smaller shopping centers. Even our big box retailers, as we'll talk about later, they might be 300-foot walls, 400, but not a lot over that. And it's why staff's not recommending over the 400 for the 5%.
Is there a process for the property owner getting a variance to go larger? If they-
Yes, there would still be a process for a variance. This is just looking at capturing some of the in-between sites or existing that may be non-conforming technically to the code now, including multi-tenants. And even with the 5%, it doesn't come up a lot. We do have some narrow shopping centers that have, or suites in shopping centers, that the 5% might help them out a little bit because their width is not very wide, but it's kind of tall. So it might be a difference between a 20 square foot sign, which is kind of small on their face, than like a 30 square foot sign. It's not a huge difference, but it might help them a little bit on the taller buildings. It comes up sometimes.
So, Rick, you had the picture of the multiple tenants. That's got to be well over. I mean, if you had 10 tenants, say, in that picture, I don't know how many, you know, you have close to what, 10, 8
Yeah, I
to
don't-
10? I mean,
don't-
that's going over the
It's
400
going over
for sure.
200. That's actually, that wall length is a little over 300. So technically, I don't know which each individual sign is actually, because they've been there a long time. But technically, supposedly, they should be all under that 300 and whatever it is. So it would be over the 200 max now, but it's been existing there for a long time. It's just an example of something that's, you could say is technically non-conforming, but would be conforming if the 400 was the max and the length of the wall is like 330 feet or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the distance is. But I looked at some of the shopping centers, and they tend to be 200, 300, 400. I didn't see a lot over 600. So that's trying to capture the majority
Right.
of them.
So you're saying for multiple tenants, as long as their place, their wall is under 400 or whatever?
Yeah, the total, and you could look at it from a standpoint of their maybe each sign is like 20 square feet, 25, 30 square feet, and they kind of add up. But hopefully they would stay under the maximum, 400. And it's something, this is existing shopping center, usually just replace one for one, but we have to look at new shopping centers and kind of have them plan out
What
their
they're
tenants
doing,
and how much wall area they have. Sometimes they even plan out an area for the sign to be placed in. It's nice to know kind of what they're working with. That way it makes it easier when they go in new tenants in there.
Well, I mean, we go into these places, we look for whatever that place is, we gotta have some kind of,
Yeah, sign.
some kind of sign to say, oh, okay, that's where it is.
Yep.
So, okay, thanks.
Thank you for being our sign expert.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Spartanburg County defines usable wall area. We don't make that distinction, right? So if it's a building that's got 400 square feet and there's 100 square feet of glass, that's still considered a wall of 400
Yeah,
square feet?
the measurement actually in the code and the measurement standards of the sign section.
Okay.
It actually just defines it height and width.
Okay.
Are there any additional questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept
As presented?
as presented with the 600 feet not included,
Not included, but as a variance
but as a
option?
variance option, yes.
Okay. I will second that. Is there a discussion?
No.
Okay, so all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Moving on to, again, a review by us to provide a recommendation to amend Chapter 155 zoning code, Table 155-5.58-1, minimum setbacks and maximum height in base districts, and Table 155-1272-1, exceptions to maximum building and structure height to allow for an increased building height with additional setback requirements and to provide a new exemption from maximum structure height calculations.
All right, good evening, commission members. Jonathan Buono, Planning Director. So this topic was referred from County Council to the Planning and Zoning Committee of Council. It's a 3-member committee. The specific ask was to examine the height restrictions in both commercial and industrial districts, and also specifically to look at hotels. Could we do different, or should we do different around maximum building height for hotels? So anecdotally, we have had a couple of instances over the years where a hotel developer has mentioned the challenge of alluring certain brands or getting the amount of site that they, the amount of rooms that they need on a smaller site given our current height restriction. In most cases, they're going into the general commercial district, and that's a height limit of 50 feet. So the Planning and Zoning Committee discussed this topic twice at their meetings in May and here recently in September. And they went through a long discussion. They talked about the different districts, and ultimately they settled on asking for a change specifically to the general commercial height limits, and then also to add a new type of exemption, and I'll get into that. So here's a draft. This is a larger table in the code that includes all of the rest of the zoning districts, but this is the section that would be amended by the amendment before you all tonight. You can see this is to take out general commercial from the row it appears with office and institutional and light industrial right now, move it down, create its own new row, so that that additional footnote number 4 can be added in the height maximum column. And so that would add that new footnote number 4 that would allow maximum height to go from 50 to up to 60 for buildings that are set back at least 200 feet from a residential lot. Fairly straightforward. Any questions on that? Yes, sir.
So Jonathan, so really the only change that's being presented tonight is in general commercial, and we're going from 50 to 60. Is that right?
For this, there's 2 total changes, so that's the first one, yeah.
Okay, Okay.
And we'll get to the second one.
Okay, we'll get to the second one. Okay. Thank you.
So here's that second one. So the committee talked about the potential to lure in new types of hotel brands, and they thought it was important to make available the opportunity to have rooftop bars or rooftop restaurants, that type of thing. So they asked for that type of amenity to be exempted from how you measure height in the zoning ordinance. So that's the draft here. You can see the short list of projection types in this table that are exempt from when you measure maximum height for a certain structure. So this would add rooftop amenities and occupiable spaces to that list. Now, there's a couple of parameters that are included in there to try to make sure that people aren't taking advantage of this, or you don't have a lot of visual bulk on top of the roof that is essentially an additional story. So included in there, it limits the space of these occupiable rooftop amenities to 25% of the total roof area. It also limits it to 15 feet above the roof line, and it adds a 1-to-1 step back ratio from the roof exterior wall. So similar concept to a setback. A step back is a distance from the exterior wall of the roof to wherever the structure is located, that closest point. So just a couple of exhibits to give some visual aid to these changes. You can see right now, a office building, a mixed-use building, a hotel building located in general commercial, you're limited to 50 feet. The proposed code change, they could go up to 60 as long as they are separated at least 200 feet from that residential lot line. And on top of that, they could add a rooftop structure of 15 feet in height. And you can see there that step back is meant to reduce the visibility of those rooftop structures. It doesn't completely obscure it, but it does limit it to some degree, depending on how close to the structure you're standing.
Can you clarify for me, so if they did choose to do a rooftop structure, it needs to be 15 feet from all sides or just from a residential side?
Yes, so this exhibit here, so this piece is area looking down on top of the roof. So here's your example of a rooftop bar. And this assumes that the rooftop bar is 15 feet in height. If it's 10, they would only need to have a 10-foot distance,
Yeah.
and it's from any point on the bar to the closest point.
So any point, even if it backs up to another building, even if it, I mean, granted, it would be the tallest structure.
Yeah, it
but
doesn't even look at any
if
other
it's in a
structures.
business district, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Has to be equal, I mean,
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
just looking from that rooftop structure to the edge of the roof. Doesn't look at any other structures.
Jonathan, is 15 feet the max height you can have on a rooftop, right?
yes.
Yeah, per this exemption, yeah.
So we've got hotels that are over 60 feet. So are they non-conforming or what?
What do you mean?
Well, like the one that Rick showed at Carowinds. I know that's probably, what, 10 stories?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so that's got to be over 100 feet high.
Yeah, there are some out there that I'm sure are, before zoning was adopted, before our current height limits
Well,
were
I
adopted.
understand that. I understand that, but I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good one. Although I think, was that property rezoned to OA? That
Yeah.
part of the, yeah. So there's actually no height limit in the OA Outdoor Amusement District. A lot of people don't know that, but that's meant to facilitate development around Carowinds. So there's actually no height limit there.
Oh, wait, say that again? There's no height limit around Carowinds?
Yep, so any property
Right.
that has the OA zoning.
Okay.
Yep.
So so a hotel, if it came in, and it's.
So yeah, if that site needed to redevelop or another site that has property with the OA zoning, yep, they would not have a height limit.
Jonathan, just to be clear, this is being discussed using a hotel as an example, but
Yeah,
we're
that's the
asking-
primary target, but it would have, so
would
the height
include-
exemption would apply broadly to anything, yep,
Okay, because when we did the exception for the data center, it was just for data centers.
that's right.
So this is a little different.
And I just want to make sure, it's just for GC, right?
No, so The one change to go from 50 to 60, that's exclusive to GC. The projection exemption list applies to any district, any development, as long as it
Okay.
meets those criteria.
Jonathan, the area that is not under rooftop, so the setback area, can that be utilized? Is it open for use? So could there be umbrellas there? Could they have a glass wall all the way up to the edge of the structure?
So you're saying
Makes
on the
sense.
roof?
Yeah, rooftop situation.
Yeah, so if you had, they're not structures, things of that nature. Or if you have structures that are below the height level, but they're complementary, they're accessory pieces to that, yeah, you could include them in the step back area. So it's just gonna be, shade implements, umbrellas, seating areas, things like that. It's really gonna be the structures that we're looking for. Yep.
Any additional questions? Is there a motion?
I just have one question. Are we being asked to approve these 2 points separately or in conjunction with each other?
It's drafted as one ordinance, so you only need to do one vote. If you'd
Okay.
like to separate them out for a different recommendation, you can certainly do that.
If there are no more questions, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. Okay, moving on to our Master Sign Plan L. Karen Party is requesting approval of a master sign plan for the West Lake Market Development. The subject property is zoned general commercial and is located at the northwest corner of Highway 55, and Highway 274 intersection, Council District 2. You're back.
Thank you. Now, this is a new thing, so I may need to be interrupted if I get something wrong, and we'll take time to try to explain this. This sign code can get complicated. So we have special districts and regional non-residential developments require a master sign plan. This is something we haven't done before, and you're the body that gets to make a recommendation on it. And if you didn't approve it, we need to fall back to all the standards found in code. So what basically is a sign package. What I'm trying to do is highlight the deviations from code. And in essence, you're being asked to approve the things that are deviations. But, in reaching that deviation, maybe you figure that there's some trade-off or something or condition that you would like to add to soften that or however you feel, and that's all acceptable. And first off, they talk about signs that we would call monument signs for the entrance. And they have two of them, and they have a sign A in your packet, and I got a site plan that'll show you where it's at. They want it to be 5 foot away from the right-of-way. We find this justified due to site conditions. There's a little sliver of land left over there to put the sign. It's just not large enough to meet all the setbacks, and we don't see a particular problem with that. They are requesting a total sign area of 255 square foot per each sign. That would constitute a deviation from the allowance of 150 square foot. They kind of picked out a standard that's not applicable to this particular development that they compared it to, which would allow them to get 50% more sign. So this is going even a little bit over that since they're going to have advertised the actual site, the Westgate Market. And this is what their sign would look like. And the sign area there and the colors is 50% more than would be allowed in a unified development. And this is the two places they want to put their freestanding signs in, A and B here, and that gives you a little idea of what we're looking at. You'll notice we got our out parcels that aren't developed yet. So we don't have sign designs for them, but we'll kind of describe what they want. And you kind of see how the site looks. The next thing we look at is monument signs, and they're proposing a 50 square foot message on 8-foot tall signs. With the unified development, ordinarily they wouldn't be allowed monument signs. Again, this is kind of a new thing. We're seeing how it goes. If they didn't have this, if they had non-residential development, they would be allowed a taller sign and bigger sign than that. They would be able to get, 15 feet and 75 square foot if they were developing all the lots individually. But technically, there's no allowance for that in a unified development. The next thing is wall signs. There's a lot of words here. We'll try to go through it. There's a little different requests that's being made. They're asking for 2 square foot of signage for each linear front of the building facade and anchor tenant. So currently in code, we have 1 per linear foot allowed. They tried to temper this request with a design of less than the maximum signage for some of the out parcel and shop tenants. The maximum signage for the anchor tenant proposed to be 300 square foot, which is interesting because we're just trying to massage the code. We just asked for 400, so not too crazy of an ask, we don't think. It's deviation from 200 until we would get a change in code. They would like to, the out parcels are proposed to be limited to 125 square foot. Right now, technically, they could go up to 200 square foot. So they're seeing a trade-off in the way they present this. And shop tenants are proposed to be limited to 70 square foot per tenant per facade. They're also proposing more than 1 sign per wall frontage. And we just talked about the allowance and code for that and made a recommendation. Maybe that's a good idea that we allow to share the maximum sign allowance between multiple signs. The final point is they want to be able to use an allowance for canopy sign for 80% of the canopy. We allow 10% of a canopy. We found this real stylistic. I don't see any harm in having the canopy sign. A lot of times you might consider canopy sign part of the wall. And they're sharing the wall frontage with canopy signs. So overall, you're not going to get more signage. There's going to be displayed on the canopy or projection that may be there. So that's not too big of an ask. They talk about incidental signs, and our code is supposed to be written in a neutral language, and these are signs that don't fit our other definitions of signs and code, and they're generally directional signs and things like that. They want to be able to go a little bit taller with them. They're 6 feet tall and maximum of 6 square foot in area, where currently they would be allowed to be 4 feet tall and a maximum area of 2 square foot. These are interior signs that kind of tell you where to go and provide directions. Finally, we have temporary signs. Temporary signs are something we don't permit through our office, but there's allowances for them and there's a little deviation, so we'll bring this out in code. They're proposing to place 2 32 square foot signs, which is a deviation from the 1 allowed in code, and for that, they're going to decrease the amount of 16 square foot that are allowed as from 5 to 4.
Can you speak up just a little bit? Can't hear you.
Yeah,
There we go.
try to,
Perfect,
you have
thank
to
you.
hunch over to get in front of
I
the
know.
mic. So then there's another kind of a tit for tat here with the applicants proposing 2 8-foot tall signs, a deviation from the 1 allowed in code, and they want to decrease the amount of 15 foot tall signs from 5 to 4. Final thing is a fuel center. This is kind of a technical exception. It's something that, is kind of an allowance that may happen, but we'll bring it up, make it formal. We prohibit LED signs, but we do kind of agree with the fact that you should be able to display your fuel prices and things with an LED system. And so technically, that's the only thing they're really asking for here is the use of LED to display the fuel prices. You know, you may approve the master sign plan as presented, you may add conditions or amendments, or you may deny it. We kind of looked at it, and you know, there's some values and how you feel about signage here. We seem to think it's within reason compared to what we see in some other places, but I'd be glad to talk about a lot of this. I know there's a lot of sign wonkiness, and be glad to take our time and go through it.
Did the council's planning committee, did they review any of this information?
No, this is adopted code. We just haven't used it yet. We've had it for a couple of years, and it's just never been requested to be reviewed or been submitted before. So it was the first submittal. We had to do everything from make an application, and we'll definitely take lessons from here about how to try to improve this presentation and how to contrast and compare what they're doing, because it's a lot.
So if we were to approve with whatever amendments or whatever, would it go to council or would it go through the committee?
No, you'd be it's kind of a quasi-judicial decision of sorts here, so that you would be the authority on it.
I have to be honest, that's a little bit my concern here, because it hasn't come before us before, and we're asking for a lot of changes off the bat. I don't
That's right.
quite maybe understand why everything has to be changed, just a little bit. I mean,
That's fair.
we set this, you know, this was set out initially based on some of the other, you know, or things that we put into place, not statute, but what type of reasoning were you given for all of these specific changes?
Well, it was in the application, and we have an applicant here? You might want to give them a chance to explain some of the site conditions, you know, the 5-foot ones. There's a couple easier ones than not. And like I said, if this gets denied, then they just fall back to the standard code. This is an opportunity that somehow was seen fit, you know, in the code to offer. So, but,
Right, no, I appreciate that, and I mean, I understand that we don't get everything right. It just seems like, right off the bat, this is a lot of change for what's supposed to be sort of a standard or a
Right.
sign, you know, a signpost, like this is what to expect. You know, do we have specific questions that we want to ask the applicant, or is there?
Maybe she could explain some of the changes to us and we'd
If
get a
you-
better idea.
If you wouldn't mind just quickly stepping to the podium and giving your name, and then if you would just speak to maybe the the major changes. It just seems that each section wants to be upped just a little, just another one, and that's interesting to me.
And Madam Chair, sorry, if I could, just before the applicant gets started,
Yeah.
you do have the option tonight, if you want to defer a decision on this, if you want additional questions based on what you hear from the applicant, you always have that opportunity
Okay.
as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you for that clarification as well.
Yeah.
Karen Partee with Aston Properties. I've been with Aston for 38 years. Aston's been in business since 1980. We've built a tremendous amount of shopping centers and have great depth in what it takes from a signage perspective to have a Class A shopping center and to have Class A tenants. And the two are married together sometimes when it comes to the signage. One of the reasons that I like doing a master sign package is because I can hand this to my tenants and I can say, this is all you're allowed to do. Because you'll notice, as he presented, there are some places where I said, you're getting less than what the ordinance allows. Because we have tenants that want to sign leases that say, you're agreeing that I can do the max of what the ordinance says. And I know before they even get ready to submit their sign package, that it's gonna be too much, it's gonna look hideous. And so there's times that I wanna tamp that back a little bit and make sure that they don't make our center look like a carnival. On the other hand, I've also done enough signage to know that 1 square foot per linear foot is only good for your really small mom and pop tenants. If you've got a 20-foot width tenant, that's 20 square feet of signage. That won't get you a good Great Clip sign or a decent AT&T sign. It's got to be a little bit more than that. Yes, I asked for 2 square feet. Could I live with 1.5? I could probably live with 1.5. I did do the math when I saw that you guys had this other amendment that was going on for the 1 per 1 or 5%, and it turns out that it's exactly the same number on my shopping center. So I need more than 1. Like I say, 1.5 would probably work if you feel like that's something you want to push back on. The reason for the monument sign is, it's my understanding, my read of the ordinance, and perhaps that's an error, that because we are partnering with another developer, we don't own his property, he doesn't own ours, he does not have frontage. He sold us our property, and we have to allow him on our monument sign. So it's a shared monument sign. The way I read the ordinance was that gives you a 50% bonus to put his signage on our monument. So that's the reason for the 225, which would fit without anything from you guys into the ordinance. The 30 square feet above that I'm asking for is to cover the Westlake Market. And I'm willing to take Westlake Market off the sign if I have to keep, because I've only got 6 panels for my tenants, and we've got 18 shops shown on our site plan. I'm not gonna get all my tenants on there. It's a 55-mile-an-hour road. They don't have time to look over and see the buildings and see who's in that shopping center. And if I want my tenants to succeed, I've got to have good signage. So I'd rather eliminate my Westlake Market to make sure I get what I need on the monument sign.
Real quick, let me just interrupt you and ask the question. So is that a fair interpretation?
Yeah, I think there was a little miscommunication between that, because you're looking at the remaining properties as they were developed. They won't have frontage on Charlotte Highway because your development will on 55. But they will have frontage on Home Road Way. So it is legitimate that they could share, that access out to the major roads, as opposed to just Home Road Way being the frontage of that existing parcel to the north that we're talking about. So that's where the confluence is she's talking about another development also on the side.
Okay.
So that clears it up, but they do have frontage, so that code part doesn't technically apply, but in their own agreements, they are talking about, as I'm understanding it, sharing that in the future and leaving room for another development, basically, to the north.
But
Yeah.
then another sign would not come in additionally. It would be shared on this larger sign, is what I'm understanding?
Yeah, as I understand it, this master sign plan would basically be this sign on Charlotte Highway and on 55. Those would be the signs, so you'd have to come back to modify those signs. The new development could possibly have a sign on Home Road Way, a new road, but it would be separate from this. We'd have to look at that, I guess. That was, because they would have another frontage there. But this is where it's coming in, because we have this development, but they're also talking about including a future development that's not approved yet. Which is good, I mean, to think about in the future.
Sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I guess I'd pause and just ask what specific questions you have or concerns you have about the things that were presented that I might be able to address.
Are there any specific questions?
I had a question about the location of the monument signs. One of our early concerns, and I'm didn't bring my magnifying glass tonight again. The freestanding sign A on Highway 274.
Right, in the right of way.
That, as you said, that's quite a busy stretch of road. And I think, are we still allowing a left-hand turn out of there? Okay. So my only concern with a 20 by 18-foot sign is the location relative to traffic that's trying to get out across what then becomes 3 or 4 lanes of traffic. And that, similar to other areas, when it gets busy, you've got a light at the corner of 55 and 274. Traffic, I guarantee you, will back up past that entrance. So my concern is, and I don't have a suggestion where to put the sign, but a sign with all that information on it, with cars coming towards that Homegrown Way intersection, trying to make a left or even a right. If the driver's not paying attention, there's going to be an accident. So is there an alternate location or a recommendation as to where the monument signs would fit? I'm almost thinking on the backside of the out parcel 3 might make more sense than having it.
So Jeff, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I think we're meeting the setback from 49. It's really the setback from the Homegrown Way. So it's not a trafficked impact so much as it's a side-to-side where we're being squeezed. You're going to pull up to that intersection and have plenty of room to stop and look left before you make your decision to pull out. Now, if you decide you want to just run the stoplight, can't help those people, but
Is there a light at Homegrown? No. The problem is it's not lighted.
So we have to, this is conceptual,
Yeah,
and it is very narrow there, and that's what we're.
I know. That was one of our,
We're left over from this, some of the parent parcel.
okay.
They made Homegrown Way, it was kind of always designated to be the sign area, but it is very narrow there. But part of the actual sign permitting process, this is kind of conceptual, what the rules will be for the signs. It would have to be outside of utility easements, the site distance triangle, the
That's what I was
basically
bringing up.
design issues. And then a minimum of this, I guess, 5 feet, but if you're saying 5 feet on the side is 10 feet from that right of way, where that new right of way line is, we'd have to work that out. But
Okay.
it would still have to be outside the site distance and utility lines and
Okay.
Okay.
sidewalks and all that infrastructure.
That-
We'd have to work out that precise detail. What I gathered they were asking for is so they can actually limit a bit the width of the sign in there, but it is a valid question, we'd have to work out the specific footprint of that sign, to make sure it works on the site.
Okay.
Yeah, Jeff, that was my follow-up question to John's about the site triangle. So this is just a master plan, so specific dimensions off the road and,
Yeah, we had to have the survey and the civil plans and make sure that it all fit in there. I guess what this would be asking for is instead of having that 10 foot from both the new Homegrown Way right away, Charlotte Highway right away, and the parcel to the north, reduce it down to 5. It would still need to be outside of.
But it wouldn't fall into that area where you're, yeah.
And is there an idea where the monuments for the out parcels would be positioned at this point?
As far as I know, with respect to town,
Okay.
it's all conceptual.
Would they likely be internal, or we don't know? Or would they be facing
I believe they're asking for road
road
frontage, their
frontage?
own smaller road frontage.
they would have to meet all the setbacks
Mhm.
that are required.
Yeah,
Thank you. Appreciate the input.
thank you.
Jeff, I got a question for you, just signs in general. So it was about a year or two, and I brought up about breakaway signs and things like that, because the closer you put these signs, they have to have some kind of breakaway device. I mean, typically, especially for 55 miles an hour. do we have that in the standards for signs? And I want to bring it up because this.
We just follow the state building code on the structure. And then they're all kind of internally built.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, we follow the state building code as a structure. So they're all, the internal of like the line signs are all built differently. Some are post, some are, brick foundation. It could be different types. They're all, we have to meet building code. But they're not like, I don't know if they're like breakaway or that. So I kind of wonder if the applicant feels like the sign can meet the 10-foot setback from Charlotte Highway, it just needs the relief on from Humber Way into the property north. Maybe that could be a slight modification to request instead of just 5 feet all around.
The way I look at it, as long as DOT, it's within DOT guidelines, you know.
Well, the whole roadway.
Right. Right.
Approved.
Thanks.
Another sign question. Talking about the fuel signs, there is an existing sign directly across the corner at the 7-Eleven that's at a 45-degree angle, so you can see it from both streets. How does that, do you know how that sign compares in size to these?
I can't remember exactly how large that sign
Okay.
is, but that sign might be at like this more standard 75 square foot
Okay,
size. I don't know the size of all the signs in the Lake Wylie area, but I do think just the ones I can see and look at, we have records for, and some of them have been there for a while. This would be the largest sign in the Lake Wylie area, so unless somebody can correct me, the entrance sign. But I think it would be the largest sign in the Lake Wylie area.
I can go measure that sign for you tomorrow. I'm about 5 minutes away. I don't want to get to the point where we have, it's a contest to see who can put the bigger fuel sign out there. There should be relatively,
Oh, you mean just the fuel sign on itself?
yes.
Yeah, because they're proposing, remember, it's just 50 square feet? Yeah. So, yeah, that's possible that the 7-Eleven has a larger sign, just because when it was permitted, I can't remember exactly the square footage.
I'm thinking it's smaller than these. I'd like to check that at some point, if you don't mind, because we may want to
Put a cap on it.
defer, yeah.
So do you have additional questions, or do you want to make a motion? How would you like to move forward?
I don't have any additional questions, but I'm not sure if we're ready to make a decision on every, like you said, there's quite a number of different signs and. Yeah, I said there's quite a few different requests here. And I'm not sure if we're prepared to,
He's saying he's not sure.
without the rest of our members, to vote on this evening.
Can I ask an additional one, if
Absolutely.
you don't mind? Are there any kind of master plans for signs in other parts of South Carolina that we can kind of compare this one to, with all the proposed changes? Is there something that you based your numbers on? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not studied up on that, other than, the comparison and signage in general. We could do a comparison study too. A lot of places hand out a lot of sign variances. I don't know if that's the case, but in general, some places they have in the past just kind of need a bigger sign and they kind of grant them, but I haven't done a study on that in South Carolina.
I mean, I commend you for presenting it, to tell you the truth. I mean, this is what really should happen in these developments, is have a master plan. I think it's great. asking, you know, where were these numbers based? I guess it's experience or a similar situation or a size of development that was in the state somewhere. I'm just asking the question. Anyway.
There's a lot of different standards. The one thing she mentioned that I support too is that, you know, there's a formula to be able to have a legible sign, and the speed at which you travel past it is part of that. But those are probably the best functional kind of thoughts on that.
If I may make a request, and I don't know whether or not we'll be able to make a decision tonight or have to defer, but in the future, when this is presented, just like you did with the other one, to have like a picture of the building and the sign and what the difference is, because for me, these measurements don't mean a whole lot unless I can visually see it.
Yeah.
So it's helpful to have that. So I do appreciate that on the other one, but if we could do that on these as well, that would help me.
I tried to get that on the application.
I agree with that request. I mean, it is difficult to visualize
Yeah.
not only the size in general, but the difference from, you know, what is in
Yes,
our standards. So,
to what's being asked.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like we're not comfortable making a decision. Would you like to ask to defer, John, or what's your,
I would like to ask to defer.
would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to defer. I would like to make a motion to defer final decision till the next meeting, till the full planning commission has a chance to look at the package of information, and we may have some additional measurements and questions that comparing what exists today versus what this is asking for.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? And all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, so we're going to defer that until next month, after we can hopefully maybe get some pictures or at least percentage differences?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the applicant, she might be able to provide, especially on the wall signs, more information, and I suppose we could look at other similar size signs for the monument sign.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we don't want to put, you know, too much additional work on you guys. But as it is the first one that has come before us, I feel like it's difficult to make so many changes right off the bat
Mhm.
without having a little bit more of a visual representation. Although I know it's not, you know, legally binding, or I think it's important to start off on the right foot. Thank you. So we're going to move on to our rezonings. Rezoning 25-26, J. Cleveland Wilson, the applicant owner, is requesting to rezone a 2.87 acre parcel from AGC to RUD. The subject parcel is located at 1723 Beam Guard Road in Clover, and the property is referenced as tax map number 262000024 in Council District 3.
Good evening, everyone. Thomas Newland, Long Range Planner. Good to be back. So, case 2526, this is west outside the town of Clover. The applicant proposes to subdivide the property and place a manufactured home. You can see this area is characteristically quite rural, with single-family residences that line Beam Guard and have access onto it. The single-wide manufactured home you actually see here in the aerials has been removed, but the plan is to add a double-wide after the subdivision. I apologize for the quite cluttered image, but really what's important here are the lot lines. You can see that given we have almost 3 acres of space, it is possible to subdivide this lot. In this proposed one, you can see it has, one of the parcels has most of the frontage, and all of it actually, and the second parcel sits behind it with an easement to get access to it. For our zoning, this area is widely agricultural conservation, but you do see we have a rural development along Beam Guard and some RSF 30 down below. And our future land use has this whole area for agriculture, where we're looking for farms, timberland, and low-density residential development. Staff recommend approval of this request. While it is not directly consistent with the comp plan and future land use map, the property is currently non-conforming, as is beneath the 5-acre minimum within AGC, and it will form 2 conforming lots if switched to RUD, which has a minimum of 1 acre, and the properties in the general vicinity are zoned RUD. Any questions for staff?
Yeah. Thomas, can you go back to the aerial view? So what is that structure? Is that a double wide or whatever structure that's right next to the road?
Sorry, that is the primary dwelling.
Okay, so that's staying.
That's staying, yes. It's just this one with the white roof that has been removed.
Okay. So the second home is going to go further back on the
It
property,
will-
and you're going to subdivide this
Yeah.
parcel?
Through the review process, there's certainly some details to shake out with that. As it is now, it will have to be set back a little bit more than it is. You can see in the aerial. Details about the easement will have to be sorted out.
But this is going to be subdivided in the future, right? Is that right?
Yes, it will have to be subdivided for a second
Okay.
dwelling beyond the lot.
Are you done, Tom?
Yeah,
Okay,
mhm.
okay. The single wide trailer that was there, was that being used as a residence?
Yes, I believe the applicant's son was living there.
Okay. So this was not a code enforcement. The ordinance is that in AGC, it's 10 acres for 2, is that right?
That's
Okay.
right.
So this is just, they want to have now a double wide there to give to their son. Is that how I'm understanding it?
That's right.
Okay.
Any additional questions?
And there's a small sliver up to the north on the picture that is RUD, those few lots there. Is that what I'm seeing too?
Yes, those are RUD.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
So my issue with this has come up before. It's a non-conforming piece, but it's also kind of right in the middle of all this AGC. There is the RUD there. And I don't like it, but I also can see, it's for family. And so those are kind of my concerns. It's gonna, make that into smaller lots. It's a hard one for me.
Any additional discussion? So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to rezoning 25-38, Sunbelt Development Properties LLC. Owner applicant is requesting to rezone 6 parcels that total 1.74 acres from RSF 32NC. The subject parcels are located at the intersection of South Sutton Road and Grady Hope Road in Fort Mill. The properties are referenced as tax map numbers 658-000035 through 040, Council District 1.
Yeah, so these 6 parcels are in the Riverview area outside the town of Fort Mill, kind of along the I-77 corridor, but south of Baxter Village. So the applicant proposes to consolidate these 6 properties and construct a multi-tenant mixed-use building with the potential for up to 11 upper-story dwellings. In code, upper-story dwellings, we define them as pretty much any dwelling that is above a non-residential use. You can see in the aerials, the area has a combination of residential and commercial uses around it. And so in the concept plan that was submitted, you could see the residential curb cuts have been taken off of Sutton Road and added to Essie Circle. And you can also see the parking has been managed quite well, given the space. It does have enough to meet the requirements within NC and the land uses that are potentially going to be there, including, potential retail and office space. The buildings are also in the corner that's the farthest from the residences that share Essie Circle for access. And so in our zoning, you can see a lot of this area is RSF 30, and you again see those splotches of commercial development. In our future land use, we have this as a transitional area, where in the comp plan we expect residential properties to adapt and assemble for civic, office, and more intense residential uses. Staff recommends approval of this request since it is consistent with the comp plan and future land use plan. The proposed development will again assemble those properties as expected, and it will remove those residential curb cuts from the major roadway, Sutton Road. Any questions for staff?
Do we know what the, what the plan is for the mixed use? Is it, you saying it's going to be some residential, some commercial, or what's your thoughts on that?
The idea would be that the first floor would have the 6 units that are for office and retail, and then the above that would be where the dwellings are.
Any additional questions? I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to rezoning 25-39, Matthew Cohn Alpine applicant, Matthew Cohn Alpine and Benjamin Wolverton Brewster, owners requesting to rezone a 9.99 acre parcel from UD to GC. The subject parcel is located at 2203 Deerfield Drive in Fort Mill, and the property is referenced as tax map number 716000054, Council District 7.
All right, this property is north of town of Fort Mill, off Springfield Parkway between I-77 and Highway 21. So the applicant proposes to upfit the existing building and add a field house to operate a health and fitness center. You can see this area is largely undeveloped around it. That is because of the existence of the Southbridge planned development. There are expectations for Deerfield Road, which kind of ends right after the building, and there are expectations that that will eventually connect to Highway 21 to the east. Here's the concept with the field house added. You can see they have parking remaining where it is. The existing building will remain where it is, but be upfit, and just the field house will be added. So the zoning's a little interesting. Again, this area is pretty much totally enveloped by the Southbridge PD. And in the PD, the abutting sectors are designated for commercial uses that are similar to what is being proposed here. Everything within the PD is mixed use, but these specific parts are for personal, business, and professional services. The future land use map shows this area within a community center node where we expect multi-story mixed-use buildings that provide commercial services and draw regional patrons. And beneath that is the I-77 corridor employment, where we expect businesses with operations that benefit from proximity to the interstate. So we recommend approval of this request. It is not consistent with the comp plan future land use map, again, because that underlying I-77 corridor employment designation. But the proposed development does support the future development of the neighboring Southbridge PD, which will include that mixed-use district that emphasizes those same types of uses. The applicant's business model is going to be by appointment only, and therefore will have minimal potential traffic impact even when Deerfield Drive is completed. Any questions for staff?
So is the gym gonna be, or whatever, the health center, it's gonna be the upfit part, right? But also the field house?
That's right.
Any additional questions?
Just one other thing. I don't know if you said it, Thomas, but the intended use, you know, I'm reading on page 75, the intended use supports the future development of the surrounding area, even though it does not align with the comprehensive plan. Can you kind of get into a little more detail on that?
Yeah, so some of, being a planned development, the zones don't line up one-to-one with what we would expect. But given the community center node and given the presence of the PD, given that we have to plan ahead and assume that when the PD is complete, we will have these businesses that exist, and this kind of sits as a donut hole in it, it makes sense to make it match those uses that will eventually be present there.
Thanks.
Any additional questions? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
A second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to our last rezoning of the evening, 25-17, Rise Partners LLC, Prestige Land and Siteworks LLC, and Ivestor Group, Prestige Land and Siteworks LLC, and Arc Homes requesting to rezone approximately 97 acres across 11 parcels from RUD and PD to PD and from PD to GC. You made this hard on purpose. The subject parcels are located on the south side of York Road, just west of the intersection of Hands Mill Highway and Adna Church Road. In Rock Hill, the properties are referenced as tax map numbers 498-000002, 003, 004, 005, 009, 0011, 12, and 0037, 0060, 0074, 075 in Council District 3.
Good evening, everybody. This evening's request here is to rezone these 11 parcels from RUD and GC to PD, as well as one that is currently a PD to GC, and then to overall amend the existing PD. It's 97 acres located on the south side of Old York Road in Rock Hill, located just past the Rock Hill city limits at the intersection of 161 and Adna Church, Hansmill Highway. Property here located, it's, like I said, just to the west of the city of Rock Hill. You can see that property highlighted in blue. That's the one that's currently the part of the PD being removed from the PD and going to GC. The properties here are heavily treed. There are a few ponds on the site as well as some streams. Zoning for the area here, I think just about every district is located within this area here. So we do have 4 residential districts. We have 2 commercials, 2 industrial districts in the area here, a PD as well as some UD. So pretty much everything on our chart is listed here. For the comprehensive plan, it's located within a community center, which is centered at the intersection of 161 and Hansmill Highway, and then sort of spans out along 161 and then north along Hansmill. The underlying zoning district or designation for the area here is single-family residential, and that's that yellow color there as well. So just to kind of give you an overview of the request here. So like I mentioned, first part of it is to amend the actual boundary. So on this map here, you can see the parcel circled in blue, that's being removed from the PD, and the 2 parcels circled here in green are being added to the PD. Actually, at the end of the day, it's a net increase of about 15 acres from the existing PD. But the purpose here is to be able to accommodate the development of a mixed-use center to include a variety of commercial and residential uses. Pod number 1, or in Pod 1 and Pod 2. The Pod 1 is the commercial area here, about 35 acres. It can do commercial, retail, and office as well. And then Pod 2 on the south side of this property here is for the residential portion. It's about 62 acres. They can do this to a maximum of 4 units per acre, which is about 247 units. It'd be a combination of both single-family, detached, and townhomes. A little bit of parcel history. In 2008, this property here was rezoned to a PD. It was established as a Newport Commons PD. In that case, it was pods 1, 2, and 3. Pod 1 and 2, very similar, where you could do, it's 35 acres, you can do office, commercial, but in this pod here, you could also do townhomes and apartments up to 18 dwelling units per acre. And the south side in pod number 3 is 50 acres. And from that, you can do single-family detached homes up to 4 dwelling units per acre. Minimum lot size, 6,000 square foot. Minimum lot width is 50 foot. So that's the existing PD as it stands today. If this did not go forward, this PD is still an active PD. You may remember a few months ago this year, you all approved a preliminary plat for Newport Commons. And in that plat, as you can see here, it was reserving about 10 acres in red there. That was for the commercial component. And then below that are the townhomes. And then below that, single-family residential. So it was approved, it has been approved, still a standing preliminary plat that could go forward if this does not get approved. So what is a PD? So just to kind of give you an overview of what a PD actually has and what its purpose for it is, it's to achieve the goals of the comprehensive plan. It's to promote a variety of mixture of uses. It's to improve your design and your character, preserve your natural resources. It always has a mix of housing types and arrangements. It's to promote the fiscal health of the county by facilitating the efficient provision of streets and utilities. Once again, here it's to preserve scenic and natural open spaces. When you have a PD, you actually establish some dimensional standards. So the PD, like other districts, don't have assigned lot widths, lot sizes, setbacks, building heights. These are all established within the actual PD itself. And also within a PD is required to have 2 distinctly different residential types. In this case here, we have single-family detached and attached townhomes. That's where they meet that requirement for the 2 different types. So here's our concept plan. In the periwinkle color at the top here is the commercial area. That's going to be pod number 1. It's going to be accessed, and I've highlighted there with little circles, off of 161 and Adna Church. It has 2 over there on Adna Church and 2 off of Highway 161. And then in that periwinkle of the commercial area, you can do a subset of the GC uses. So the applicant took the whole spectrum of GC uses and pared down a few that weren't appropriate for the area and removed those. So it does have a subset, but it's generally the general commercial GC uses. And then in pod number 2 is the residential, up to 4 dwelling units per acre. It's going to be accessing off of Highway 161 and coming through the commercial area, as well as one off of Adna Church Road. And from that, they can do single-family detached and townhome units. So as part of a PD, the applicant has the opportunity to develop their own development code or pattern book, or they can just opt for whatever the codes require. But in this case, they did provide a development code where they have little modifications from the existing code. They cover general provisions, amenities, open space, landscaping buffers, access, utilities, land use, buildings. And so like I mentioned, this can include both things that are consistent with the zoning ordinance and the land development code and things that are contrary to that one. Also, as part of a PD or a special district, they're required to do architectural plans, both commercial and residential. Those were both in your packet. They also do a master landscape plan. And also for a special district, they're required to have an approved traffic impact analysis. So they have submitted the TIA. It's been in front of York County as well as SCDOT, and it has been approved for their requirement and mitigations. So, like I mentioned, in your packet, you will see some tables that actually show what is different from what the code requires and what the applicant is requesting it, as well as a staff recommendation of how we either support it or might want some kind of an amendment to it. So we have 10 of these to go through. I will go through them. If you have any questions, just let me know. So the first one here is talking about amenities for the commercial area. And that's determined for the commercial part by the number of parking spaces. It's a very large site, lots of parking spaces. They would have to do up to about 15, or minimum, I should say, minimum of 15 amenities for that whole commercial component. And so they had the request to be able to go down to 3 amenities. And so we have a recommendation here, and that we concur with that as a reduction in the overall, because 15 might be a lot, but we do require them to have a significant high-quality amenities. The other thing the applicant requested was to be able to add the stormwater pond as a type of amenity. And our recommendation is that should not be included as an amenity in the commercial area unless it's part of a centrally located focal point of the pod. And if you may have seen on the concept plan, that stormwater pond was behind the building, and so we felt if you want to have it as an amenity, it needs to be a focal point. The next one here is for the residential area. That's based upon the number of dwelling units. So based upon what their yield could be, they could have a minimum of 6, and they've asked to only have to do 4. And also, once again, they wanted to be able to add the stormwater pond for the amenity. Staff concurs with the reduction just to 4, but we also made the comment about the stormwater ponds are okay in a residential space. They can be an amenity only if they include a trail, a fountain, seating areas, and are designed to be both visually and resident safety, or visibility and resident safety. We can pause if you'd like.
Yeah,
Sure.
going back, I'm so sorry, Diane, but what is a high-quality amenity to you?
A very good question. We would like it to be able to be left up to staff's discretion as we review something to be able to determine whether or not that's a high-quality amenity. If you can look at the table of amenities, it has things that just could be like a bench. That is not what it would be. So what we're looking for, if you're going to reduce that to a fewer number, they need to be some public art, some water features, a fountain. We're looking at that level of public amenities is what we're looking at.
Okay, thanks.
We want to have some flexibility, but we
Sure.
want to be able to know that we can govern that.
Thanks.
I'll keep going. So the next one is going to be open space. The code has what they call usable open space, and that is area where it has a slope that people can comfortably utilize it by the residents. According to the code, they're required to have 40% open space must be dry land with a slope of less than 15%. And the applicant here has requested it to be 10% with the slope of 15%. And so that usable space refers to compact level, unobstructed areas available for safe and convenient use. It provides active recreation, passive recreation, and community interaction. The usable open space should be higher than 10%, but maybe less than 40%. So if you were to reduce that to 10% or allow that to go forward like that, you're reducing the quality of their open space, of having usable actual open space. The second part of the open space is it has limitations of what you can actually include in open space. For instance, here, you can have stormwater ponds can be only 20% of your total open space, and buffers and tree save can only be 50% of the open space. It also requires stormwater ponds to be amenitized. And so what they're asking for is to be able to have up to 30% for the stormwater ponds and 65% for the tree save and buffers. And stormwater ponds and litter property buffers are generally not usable space, but given the scale of the proposed commercial pod, it may be possible to achieve maybe impossible to achieve those limits. So we're okay with this slight increase of allowing for the stormwater ponds and for the buffers and tree save.
So going back to, what would your recommendation be, going back to the unused, open space, higher than 10%? What's your
We're
thinking?
sort of leaving it up to the planning commission and whatever you are comfortable. Just know that the lower that number gets, the less opportunity they would have for a usable open space. So, you know, it needs to be somewhere within that range. So that's whatever you're comfortable recommending.
Dan, the second piece of the open space.
Sure.
The code requirement is that the ponds be amenitized. Does that get excluded in what we're asking for?
What do you mean by excluded? So
Well,
they're,
it's in the code requirement, but it's not in the applicant's request.
they are actually amenitized in their ponds.
Okay.
They are. The next section here is the tree preservation. So the first part about the tree save is their code requires existing canopy to be saved, a portion of that, and requires 20% for residential and 15% for commercial. And the applicant is requesting to do 15% over the entire area, can go into one portion of the pod. So essentially what they're saying is they want to be able to move some of that tree, or any amount of the tree save from the commercial all into the residential, which is probably likely what would happen. So that switch, even though it's a net reduction in the overall, they'll probably have a better quality tree save in the residential area by putting all those trees from the commercial part over onto the residential. So staff is concurring with that change. The next part of tree preservation is the grand tree. So the code provides a process to mitigate the removal of grand trees. And to do that, they can do it in 3 ways. It's administrative approval or a waiver is required from the PC. And they can provide 3 ways to mitigate that. They can do additional tree save, they can plant new trees, or they can do a fee in lieu up to 50%. The applicant's request is to be able to, for grand trees to be removed without the administrative or PC approval, and any combination of replanting DBH on-site or fee in lieu. And so that would eliminate any approval step and also eliminate the cap on the fee in lieu mitigation. So in practical terms, this could result in little or no grand trees preserved, and all mitigation would be off-site in the form of monetary contributions.
But the grand trees qualify as the tree buffer area, right?
The grand trees can be within the buffer, yeah, and they haven't made any changes to what consists or what type of grand trees. That table that we have in our code is staying forward. Now, the final 4 here are what we call site design. The first 2 happen to talk about parking. And so for larger developments, the code requires, gets kind of, once again, like they were saying before, wonky-ish. And it requires the parking areas to be screened by buildings occupying at least 80% of abutting street frontage. And that's to be able to have a screening of, utilizing the buildings to be able to screen the street frontage. Requesting to delete this for the outlots. So if you can think back to the concept plan, the outlots along the front of the property line, to be able to remove that requirement to have that 80% of screening. Given the proposed commercial outlet spatial arrangement with the anchor parking lot, staff concurs with this alternative. The second one here is for larger developments, the code requires that a portion of the parking to be located to the sides or the rear of the buildings to be able to minimize that sea of parking. So the code requires that no more than 40% of the parking spaces may be located between the front facade of the building and the abutting road. Their requesting here is to delete the requirement for the retail area on the southern side of Pod A. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna, because that gets kind of confusing. So they're speaking about this pod, this is the retail area of Pod A, and that's the parking they're speaking about, is to not require them to meet that requirement. An alternative site design would improve the visual appearance and function within that sea of parking. The next item here talks about the drive-through queuing. And so the code requires 1 bypass lane when 2 parallel queuing lanes are provided. And so that means if you're in a drive-through at a McDonald's or whatever, you have a way to be, a bypass lane is to get out, so you aren't stuck there. They want to delete the bypass when you have 2 parallel lanes are provided. So if you have 2 lanes, they don't want to have to do a bypass, they just want to have the 2 parallel lanes. Bypass lanes, like I mentioned, are necessary to allow for proper management of drive-throughs, and staff recommends the bypass lanes be provided. And the final here one for the site design is the bike racks. Code establishes bike rack based for all special districts, they're required to do bike racks. And it's all based upon your number of parking spaces. And we counted that up, and they probably would have had to do like 80 bike racks for this location here. And so they recommended to come down to 20, we agree with that. And on the southern side, and then each outlot gets 2 bike racks as well. So 20 on the southern side, and then 2 on the top part. And we recommend that alternative. Now we're going to go to our traffic improvements. And I'm going to walk you through these. This is from phase 1. So the development is broken down into 2 separate phases. And the first phase is the anchor lot, and I believe 50 homes. And that's to be completed based upon the TIA by 2028. And the rest of it would happen in the second phase and by 2030. This might not be difficult to read, so I'm going to walk you through here. There are a couple things where they're off-site improvements. And so, for instance, this is the intersection, here's 161 going this way. This is Hansville Highway and Adna Church going south. And there's a light right there. For phase 1, they're required to put a westbound turn lane. So that's people traveling from Rock Hill, going towards York. As they approach Hansville Highway, they have to put a turn lane in to go back north up there. That must be done in 2020 for the first phase. They're also required on phase 1 to be able to this is Parham Road. So once you get past the site as you're traveling this is Mount Gallup. There's a traffic light right there. Road comes through here. This is a failing intersection. They're required to make that no left turns coming down Parham onto 161. They're required to make those improvements to prohibit the left-hand turns. Throughout the site during the first phase, they're required to do access lanes here, turn lanes coming in and out, egress lanes for access A, B, and then also on C, D, and E. On access for B, there is no left-hand turn leaving the site at access B. And at access C, across from Marion, it's a right in, right out. And so, like I said, 2 off-site improvements, and they're the ones that are being done with the development itself. For phase 2, there's just going to be off-site improvements. And for that one, they'd have to do, I think they're making a left-hand protected left coming down 161, turning left on Adna Church, as well as a traffic signal at access A. And based upon the TIA and the study, they feel as though warrants will be available or will be met once they get to the phase 2 to be able to put in a traffic signal at that location. I'm going to pause here if you have any questions about transportation or traffic improvements.
Did they ever think about putting a roundabout there at Adna Church and 161?
Hansville Highway 161, they don't think they modeled that. I don't think a roundabout would work at that volume through there. There's a lot of traffic coming through that intersection. I don't think a roundabout's going to work.
Yeah, it's just going to queue in all these lights queue people in.
Yeah.
You know, and the roundabout gives it a little bit more flexibility of getting through a busy interchange.
Yeah, I don't believe a roundabout would function.
You might get away with
It's
that
just
on
a thought.
Adna.
Yeah, sure.
You might get away with that on Adna Church, but you're not going to get away with it on York
Yeah.
Road. Old York Road.
All right, so a recommendation. We're recommending approval of this one here, consistent with the future land use map as a community center node. We do have the recommendation have the following amendments to the development code. Those are the 4 that I highlighted that were actually bolded in your table, and that was for the amenities for the commercial, the stormwater ponds, residential, also stormwater ponds, usable open space, some number between 10 and 40, and then to require the drive-through queuing lanes. Any questions?
I noticed the impervious surfaces are really, the percentage is astronomical. You know, pod 1, I mean, you're looking at 80% of the area is impervious?
I think 75% is allowed by the code, or required by the code, so you're just up a little bit higher for that one. I believe it was 65 or 64, the residential. So there was some jump. By all means, if there was something I didn't highlight that you have take issue with on the Belton Code, that's your purview.
Yeah, I had a concern with the grant tree removal. I think we should stay with administrative approval or waiver. It's not that much of it's a requirement for a reason. And I wouldn't leave it up to the developer to decide to pull all the trees out of there. I'd like to see our arborist go through.
That would be in addition to the 4 that we've had showing here.
Mm-hmm. You guys all right with that?
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Do you want us to come up with a number on the usable open space, or do we want to leave it 10 to 40?
Well, we'd like to get an idea as to which way you're leaning, if you were thinking about changing something. So yeah, if you could recommend something, we'd appreciate that.
I'm at 40.
I was going to say, I would stay as high as possible. I think
Yeah.
when you provide
I
open
agree.
space, you have less people leaving the neighborhood to go do things. If kids have places to play, if
I would agree.
they're not having to drive to a park, if, I think we have open space for a reason, personally.
Totally agree.
Same reason we have grand tree ordinances
Mm-hmm.
for a reason. Everything tonight seems to be wanting to inch everything up. That's frustrating. That's just my.
This is actually inching it down.
Well, but you get the idea.
Yes, I do.
That's just my 2 cents.
No, I agree with the 40%. Keeping it.
I mean, if it really came down to, because of stormwater or something, you had to lower it slightly, I could maybe see that, but again, I
That's
feel
a
like.
huge, it's a huge
it-
difference.
I feel like we
Yeah.
have it, right, exactly,
Yeah.
10% to 40%, that's the difference between,
Yeah, I feel like it's unreasonable. Did they give a reason behind that number?
They haven't been specific about the reason. I'm going to say that there is a lot of slope on this property, or some topo, and so I think it's a challenging site, and that's where they felt they were able to achieve. That was a number they felt comfortable with, they could definitely achieve, based upon how they see the grading.
might have to move some things around,
I
which I
would
know is
And-
easier said than done.
Leave it at 40.
And with 80% impervious, that's a big stormwater pond. I mean, I don't know if they realize that. That's a big.
Well, they increased it, right, from what the code is?
Yeah, it's a
It was
slight increase. I think it's
increased.
75 required by the code, and they're going to 80%. Yeah.
But it's site-specific, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of topography, grade.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how you size those ponds, by grade also. Yeah. You saying it kind of drops in elevation? I mean, we don't have a topography map here, but
There, in your
Was it?
package, there are a bunch that had topo lines on them. Yes, towards the back of the staff report. Because there is a large site and there's a lot of topography, we did add some, quite a few.
There's-
With the amenities number, again, that's a big drop. I mean, I'm definitely thinking, was it 20? Seemed
They're required to do 15, they'd like to
15.
do 3.
do 3.
But they
And
have
I
to
think
be
they
high.
identified, and I think that may have included the stormwater pond as one of the 3. So I think they were showing on their site
Oh, here we go.
an amenity would be going in this section over here. I think there's a small amenity, I think there was one over here, maybe some art. And I think they were going to include that one there. The applicant is here if they have any questions for the applicant.
Are there any additional questions? I would, excuse me, I would be willing to make a motion. I still think 15 to 3 amenities is stingy, but,
What, 5?
well, but I mean, you know, that can be up to the people purchasing the homes, if that's enough for them. So I would make a motion.
Madam Chair, if I could,
please.
I have a recommendation for how you might go through your motion process, because this is probably going to be a little bit complicated, more so than most rezonings, right?
Yep.
So my recommendation, if you make a clean recommendation for approval with nothing added to it, and then take up a series of amendments that, to that main motion, that you can talk about each issue one at a time, and that you all can land on that one issue, cross it off, move on to the next one, until you've got a single motion that's got a series of amendments you've already voted on.
Okay.
Okay.
So I will make a motion to approve with amendments. So you'd
Should
like
they
us-
vote
I
on
would say you
that?
want us to actually vote.
So you would
and
just
then-
need, you just make the motion to approve, get a second, and then someone could make a motion to amend.
My
that
motion.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Seems like that could be more difficult than,
It's more work, but it's much cleaner, I promise you.
okay. I'll start making some notes. So, like I said, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I will second.
So we have a first and a second. Is there discussion? I don't know that as the person putting forth the motion, I can make the First Amendment. So is there, like, do we want to go in order?
I think we just go in order.
We'll just go in order, yeah.
Or plus anything else that is of, importance to you?
Right. So I would say the First Amendment would be the amenities in commercial, that the stormwater pond should not be included as an amenity in the commercial area unless they're designed as a centrally located point to the pod. You want me to just read them down?
We can start with that one.
Okay.
Is there, so that would be a motion? We would need a second on that one. Is
So you're
there-
okay with 3, right?
Yeah, this could be both the number as well as the stormwater pond.
You want to go 5? I mean, it's arbitrary at this point, but it's higher than, I think we all agree going from 15 to 3 is a little
Seems like
dramatic.
a lot, yeah. Sorry, I'm going to go back and reference how many. Okay, so typically it's 15 in the code requirement, and the applicant is requesting 3, including the stormwater as an amenity, correct?
Correct. And I
That's-
can direct you to, in their development code, on page 4, they do have their list of what they are allowed to be able to choose, and for what counts as an amenity. Kind of give you an idea as to what that might look like. So I don't know what page it is in your
I say,
packet, I
what page is it?
apologize. It's after the staff report, it's after the site plan. It's going to have a cover that looks, starting off with this,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that code,
117.
and it's going to be on page number 4.
117.
okay.
And that includes a list of what they would, or they can choose
Okay,
from this list.
Gotcha.
it's page 117 and 136.
Amenity, okay, does everyone have access to this? So we're talking
Mhm.
about
Yep.
amenities of, they're asking for a minimum of 3 amenities from the list below are to be placed upon the anchor pad. So seating area, gazebo or other covered shelter, multi-use trail, bicycle storage and repair station, water feature, public art, stormwater pond. including a
And
walk,
any other at the bottom of that.
any other similar deliberately designed amenities.
But it's got, yeah.
Was
But
the
it's a
fif-
storm, oh, go ahead.
Was the 15 in the code for the entire PD?
This is the commercial section.
Just the
So, yeah,
commercial?
we're just looking at
So
the
it should-
commercial section, the top part of, it.
And
yeah.
it should have been 15, just for the commercial?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's based upon, yeah, just for the commercial, it's based upon number of parking spaces.
Okay.
That's what drives that.
Okay.
So you've got two seating areas and bicycles that are kind of no-brainers, right? Bike racks.
I would think so.
So they're asking for one more amenity?
And that's why we had that provision about being of a high-quality standard, so, I don't know that staff would support if it was just a, bench.
And
I
Diane
don't think
said
that's the intention either, to be honest.
There was art also, you said.
You can do
Yes,
public art. I
art,
think I'd seen
public
on one
art,
of the
too.
plans, there
Yeah.
was a place for public
Yeah.
art.
So that was for Pod 1, which is the commercial, and then Pod 2, which is the residential.
Right,
Correct.
that's the second item on the list of things.
Right.
That's residential.
Which are very similar, but then they add, more residential.
Yeah, I think they
type
added
things.
Only-
the pool.
Playgrounds, basketball,
More residential in nature,
yeah,
correct.
outside activities, yep.
Yeah. And that went from 6 to 4, so that wasn't as large a drop.
Right.
Mhm.
I would say if it's 4 in one, do 4 in the other.
That's what I was thinking. Let's just make it 4.
Just make it 4
4
for
and
both.
4.
4 and 4, so 4 in the residential as
yeah.
well as 4
In
in the
commercial.
commercial.
And the stormwater pond is not included in
Not including,
Unless-
it. Not.
unless it's
unless
amenitized,
it's- Right, centrally.
And
Correct.
centrally located.
Focal point.
central located,
Right.
a fountain or a walking trail or
Yeah, and
something.
if you can see in their list of amenities here for their open space, they would intend to do all that. They're
Yeah.
just putting it behind a large building,
Gotcha. So usable space, essentially, someplace where people want to go,
focal point.
hopefully. Gotcha. So that is Amendment 1 is for the residential commercial or
Commercial.
Pod 1 amenities, and the recommendation was 4?
4.
4. Is there a second?
There's a second here.
There's a second. Is there further discussion on that?
We're good.
Do we need to vote on each individual amendment? On each individual, okay. So vote on each individual and then the main motion at the end. Gotcha. As amended. Thank you for the
We got it
clarification.
now.
Okay, so on that first amendment, which has to do with the commercial amenities, dropping from 15 to 4, if there's no further discussion, all of those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Moving on to, is there any discussion on additional amendments? Do we-
Yeah, we want to cover the usable open space.
Or the number 2, the residential amenities?
Yes,
Okay,
the residential. Do you want me to? okay.
sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the residential amenities, the stormwater ponds in the residential spaces should serve as an amenity only if they include a trail, a fountain, seating areas, and are designed for both visibility and resident safety.
And the number, which was?
4.
4. So that would be that'd be your motion to
That's
amend
the
it?
motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there additional discussion? No. So there is a first and a second to amend that to include 4 residential amenities. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Are there any additional amendments?
Number 3 is usable open space. Do we want to assign a number, or are we saying we want to keep it, we'll keep it
Talking
at
about
40?
Keep it at the 40?
Okay. So usable open space, usable level open space should be 40%, not less than 40% of the total provided open space,
Or the code requirement.
or
As
the
per
code
code,
requirement,
which
which
is
is
the
what
code
it is, yeah.
Right.
Or the existing code requirement.
Okay. And is there a second for that amendment?
I'll second.
Tommy?
Is there any additional discussion? Okay, so there's a first and a second to amend the open space to stick with the code recommendation of, or the code guidelines of 40%. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Looks like the drive-through queuing is a potential issue, so I would make the amendment to take staff's recommendation to include bypass lanes when there are 2 queuing lanes, so that there's a way, an egress around. It just makes safety smart to me. I mean,
Yep.
seems smart to me. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there discussion? All those in favor of the bypass lane recommendation? Anyone opposed?
Nope.
Is there any other concerns?
There was one more that we wanted to add, I think, was the Grand Tree
Okay,
requirement, the code, existing administrative approval or waiver required to remove any grand trees from the property.
I would second that. I think
Okay.
oversight,
There's a process.
exactly, is
Yeah.
not a bad,
Right.
Yeah.
bad thing. Is there additional discussion?
Can I just get clarity on that one? I'm sorry, John. You're saying
Go
it's
ahead.
to go by the existing code? Is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So what, do we know the percentage of the property that's currently wooded?
No, we don't, well, not officially.
So
So
there's
we,
probably a
ha-
number of mature trees.
they have
Right.
identified, they've done a tree survey, so they know what the grand trees are. We know the area for the tree save, but we haven't officially reviewed that information yet. I don't know what number that would be, but I know that they are there.
So we would have to have administrative approval over X number of grand trees. We don't know what that number is.
Yeah, we don't know what that number is, what we'd actually be approving at this point.
But there's typically, I mean, typically the process is to have it waived. It either has to, you either have to get a waiver or there's a staff
Administratively
approval
or
process.
PC,
Right.
and there's different ways you can do that. So, and there's actually, you can do some by having additional tree save, you can plant more trees, or you can do a fee in lieu. And the fee in lieu is when they would put money into a bank to put trees somewhere else. And the code has a requirement, a minimum of how much you can do for the fee in lieu. I think it's 50% for the fee in lieu. And so this would be removing any of that and giving them, you know,
So there was a
Motion.
motion
Is there
and a second.
Second. All in-
Additional discussion?
can you do the second? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Additional discussion?
I'm good.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment to basically stick to the existing code when it comes to the grand trees? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, are there any other concerns that we would like to add amendments for? So now we would, sorry, did you say?
On the parking area, Diane, can we go over that? The staff recommendation was an alternative site design would improve the visual appearance and function within the, it says C of parking, but that's not C, it's,
And we did not give a recommendation, we were just giving you what the implications of what they're designing like this. In order to be able to do that, require really a large change to their site. And it would require them to redesign the site to be able to achieve that code.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it looks like there's no real space to either side unless they took out a good portion of
They'd
the
have to redesign the whole
townhouses.
site to make
Yeah.
that section of the code work.
Okay. Are you okay with that, Tom?
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
mean,
We're good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
You're
so
welcome.
we have a motion on the table with amendments that have all been voted on.
Separately voted on.
So then we would like to vote on the amended. The main motion as amended. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any additional discussion? Okay, All of those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you for helping out with that one.
Yeah, that was a long one, Diane, thanks.
Welcome. So we do have some other business this evening. It has been requested that we discuss actually the Grand
trees.
Tree ordinance brought to us by one of our Planning Commission members. So John, do you want to?
Yeah, I think we're all familiar with the Grand Tree Ordinance, 154-200, which is protection of grand trees. And I don't think there are any issues with any of that verbiage or the intent. That's something that I think we did several years ago that we looked in detail. What I was hoping to discuss was 154-202, which is grand tree protection during construction. And the reason I want to try and revisit that perhaps is that there have been several examples. I know, first of all, I know the department does a great job of looking at each tree, looking at the health of the tree, determining whether or not it should be mitigated or saved. And I think we give contractors and developers quite a bit of leeway when they have a valid argument to remove a tree. When the trees are asked to be saved, I'm not sure if we can do anything more to maybe protect the critical root zones, because I can give you several examples where trees 2 or 3 years ago during a construction project were required to be saved. There's supposed to be a fence that's put around them. And in many cases, the trees die 2 years later because either that the roots are still damaged, or there's construction equipment, or something happens. So I had a brief discussion with Jonathan, and I think Peter also had mentioned that currently there's a 1 foot per inch of tree requirement to create a fencing area around a grand tree. If you're looking at trees that are much larger, I mean, we've got some that are 32 and 40 inches and higher. Maybe there's a way, and we probably need to get Peter involved to make a recommendation to perhaps increase that to like 1.5 inches for 30, or 1.5 foot for trees that are greater than 32 inches, or 2 inches for trees that are greater than 40 inches, because these are the ones that we really want to try and save if possible. Some areas call them heritage trees. And I just don't think that the existing requirement in the ordinance protects the tree root, the critical roots of the tree sufficiently to maintain the health.
During construction.
During construction, to maintain the health of that tree.
Can I ask, is Peter the arborist?
Yes.
Okay. So I would be good with having arborists, look at each specific case, that we're going to do a tree save. And it's based on the species that it is, because, there's different type of oak trees, for example, that what you were talking about, that wouldn't get damaged, but if it was a different type of oak tree, you'd have to increase that radius.
Yeah, his concern was as the trees get older, and you're talking about trees that could be 100 years old, the roots are much further out
Correct.
than a younger,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Right.
tree. So I don't know what your recommendation would be to further a discussion with.
Yeah, so the Planning Commission, like council, has the ability to request text amendments to code. So to kind of start that conversation, if you are all on board with asking that be a direction that we take, you might have a motion that suggests that staff look into, are there better ways to protect grand trees or other protected trees, if you
Mhm.
wanted to include that, during active construction. I think that's something we could take a look at
Okay.
and get back to you.
That's,
Yeah.
we'd love that. Wow. Are you with that, John?
I'm fine with that, yeah.
Okay.
So Diane, can we make a motion then to have staff review some potential alternates to the existing 154-202 protection during construction that might help save some of these trees?
And can we request Peter to come in here and kind of give
Yeah,
his
so,
thoughts?
Yeah, whenever we have a staff process where someone is researching and evaluating a specific question or a specific change that's been requested, that staff member would be the subject matter expert that would come forward and talk to you all about it. So, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Is
John,
that in the form of a motion?
I say, were there any other concerns, or?
No,
You're good?
that's sufficient, yeah. I made that as a motion for staff
So
to
is
make
there
some recommendations
a
on.
second on that motion?
I'll second that.
And any discussion?
Nope.
Any, okay, so all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions on the rezoning tracking sheet?
Your favorite.
My favorite. If not, we will adjourn at 8:06.
Thank you. We need to make a motion for that?
Oh, we probably do.
That's
right?
all right.
Do we need to make a motion for that?